Hey guys, how all of you beautiful people are doing? And yes, this is the next part of Season 2 of Multiverse of Marvel. When a cinephile and an otaku /weeb travels through dimensions and gets a system which can only be described as overpowered but comes with restrictions. At first he was overjoyed with the system but soon realizes that he is in a very dangerous world where his life was at risk all the time. So let's start without any delay. Tony, did you destroy the ship's phantom drive? Wayne asked Tony as he was protecting Vision. Yes. Already took care of it. How much more time for Vision? Tony asked. I hope it's not more. Apparently due to Kryptonian ship's higher level of technology it's taking more time. Wayne replied as he blasted a robot who was trying to come close. I need to kill this son of a ********h with my own hands. He killed my friend. Tony said as he was still angry about losing two ships out of nowhere. The fight went on where everybody was fighting. Siri was able to open multiple portals to the helicarrier and even Victor did the same. Flash, Wanda and Pietro made sure that the civilians weren't attacked. Triss and Yen also helped in sending people to safety. At first the civilians didn't understand what was going on, but many had seen the world engine from John's movie here too. Even though Sokovia didn't like Americans, John's movies were loved everywhere and they knew there were superheroes from the movies. The world engine made everybody scared, but when many new heroes emerged they felt a little relieved and thus followed them to portals. After more than 5 minutes, Vision was finally able to purge Ultron totally from the internet. Wayne informed everybody and by that time everybody was evacuated from the city, thanks to multiple portals from Victor, Triss, Yen and Siri. All right people. Let's give them hell. Arthur said. Can't let anybody escape. Any escaping robot means we have failed. Hal, Flash and Pietro make a perimeter around. Diana said. John now finally started to attack the world engine. Thor and Tony too joined in this. Steve and others had almost killed all the robots on the ground. Hulk directly jumped on one leg of the world engine and punched it. This broke the leg of the world engine. This attack made the world engine lose balance and made it fall into the ground slowly. Flash, Pietro. We need help here. Steve said as he saw the falling world engine. They were all under the world engine and they would be killed if it fell on them. Thus Flash and Pietro came to take everyone away while Victor and others joined the fight. Siri appeared out of nowhere and used her sword and her powers to assault another leg of the falling world engine. This broke another leg. By the time the world engine fell, everybody below was taken away. The world engine fell with a bang and even caused a mini earthquake around. John finally felt relieved when he saw the world engine being destroyed. He didn't want to get the attention of Arishem by bringing down Tiamat. That would be more of a headache. Tony, transmutate the whole ship. We don't want governments get their hands on this, make more powerful weapons. Steve reminded from far away. On it. Bruce, help me here. Tony said. Wayne finally let go of Vision, who got unconscious for a few seconds after killing Ultron, and joined Tony in decimating the ship. John flew as he was hunting down the last remaining robots. He needed some answers from Ultron, so he needed to keep the last one alive. After a few minutes of killing, Gaia finally said that there was only one robot remaining. John finally found it as it was trying to run away. He caught the robot with his talons and threw it to the ground. He directly stepped on his chest and said, "Now you understand my powers." John said, "You have fooled the whole world, John, I am impressed." Ultron said with a mocking tone. Why? You want to reveal my secret? Do you think I care? John replied. Why would I do that? Everybody knows of Tony Stark and nobody cares. It will be counterproductive. Ultron said. Tell me, Ultron. Why did you come back? You ran away. Why did you come back to die? You knew you wouldn't be able to match against us with just a world engine and a small army of robots. John asked. Because I wanted to stop you from searching for me. I have achieved that. Now you can never find me. I will return with more force and you can never stop me. Ultron said. John was taken aback because he didn't understand what Ultron meant by that. Vision had already purged Ultron off the internet and Gaia made sure there were no remaining robots. Then he understood what Ultron meant. He instantly became more angry and directly killed Ultron with the wave of his wings. What did he mean by stopping us from searching for him? Steve asked as they all had come to see the last remaining robot. He means he was successful in escaping with the scout ship. And since he didn't want us to find him with the other spaceships, he attacked with the world engine so as to make all of us concentrate here on Earth. Wayne said as he understood what Ultron meant by that. Ultron will return. John was still angry and flew to the broken world engine and transformed himself back to normal and proceeded to decimate the world engine with decomposition alchemy. The others understood John's anger. He had been trying to stop Ultron since the beginning. It was as if he was driven by hunger to kill Ultron. When Loki came to attack, he never showed that hatred, but apparently Ultron disgusted John. It was probably because he had seen other universes that suffered from Ultron and thus wanted to kill him before he could do any harm. Hal, tell all the Green Lanterns to be on the lookout for a damaged Kryptonian ship. Its hull was blown off when it went into Phantom Drive. It couldn't go too far. I want every sector to be searched. I will inform the Guardians myself of Ultron. John said. Yes. Hal answered as he contacted the Guardians. We can't always win, John. Sometimes we need to have a setback to rise higher. Gerald said. John sighed when he heard that. It was the first loss he had suffered after he came here. Never expected to lose in front of an AI. Fine. Let's go back. I hope Ultron will not raise a storm in the universe. The universe too isn't very kind to AI. SHIELD can handle the relevant matters here. John said. Victor opened boom tubes and thus everybody returned back to headquarters. Everybody's mood was a little heavy, so after talking a bit they went off on their ways. They needed to get ready for when Ultron comes in future and needed to be more powerful. John was stressed a bit for the past few months of Ultron, and now finally Ultron had been purged off the internet, he could rest. Even though the threat was there, at least Ultron wasn't on Earth now. John was happy that there were almost no casualties on Sokovia instead of the original world. John was also a little excited for the rise of fan values. This war was fought in Eastern Europe and thus they would be famous now in Europe too. Avengers mostly worked on America and now finally there was a change. This would prompt the people outside America to watch more movies and help John more. The next day the whole world exploded with news of the world engine appearing. Tony later came out and reported on an evil AI taking over a world engine which was from Krypton. The AI wanted to make Earth like Krypton and thus the fight happened. The Avengers had to act immediately and so they took action to stop it. People applauded the work of the Avengers. By now there were many members of Avengers and were surprised to see that there were even characters from the games too. They could easily identify Geralt and Ciri from all the pictures and videos that the Sokovians took before being transported to the helicarrier. This prompted the gamers to be a fan of John's games more. Before it was Horizon Zero Dawn and now it was The Witcher. John was happy to see the response and knew his fan value would be on the rise soon. He just needed to wait and watch the rise. Though there were still protests saying the presence of an AI on Mars is a threat and must be killed. Umbrella just came out and said that the AI in Mars was required to maintain the ecosystem and thus it can't be killed. If the people still insisted on the path, their chances of space travel would be revoked forever. Umbrella was responsible for space travel for normal people now, and this was a huge temptation to all since Umbrella had been sending normal workers to Mars too instead of just sending rich people. This threat made the protesters back down a bit. By the end of October all the protests had gone down. The Guardians tasked the Lanterns in search of the ship. John even contacted Emma to be on the lookout and explained to her why the ship was important. She understood why the Guardians had tasked them in finding the spaceship. John then contacted Lex and told him to be on the lookout for a damaged Kryptonian ship. The Nova Prime 2 was informed of a very powerful rogue AI and thus it alerted the Empire. By now Lex Corporation had started building spaceships which had phantom drive. For the first time in the universe, the spaceships didn't need to go to jump points to space travel. This new technology surprised almost everyone in the known universe and they flocked to buying the new spaceships. Lex Corp was on the rise and it wouldn't take long before it became an entity that nobody would be able to shake. This even boosted the trade of the Nova Empire and they were happy to see more prominence and trade. By the time November came the total fan values had reached a tipping point. John heard the familiar words that he had been waiting for a long time. Ding! Total fan values accumulated, 12 billion. Update requirement achieved. Do you want to continue the update? I have been waiting for you for a long time. Do it. John said. Ding. Updating. 10%. 20%. 60%. 80%. 100%. Updated. Does the host want to know the new features of the update? Of course. John said. Ding. Now the host can bring the comic, manga or the story powers to the character's powers that the host summons. For example, Bruce Wayne can get all the suits from the comics if there is sufficient fan values. What? You mean to say if I have any sufficient fan value I can get the Element X Batsuit for Bruce Wayne? John asked. Ding. Yes. But the host hasn't reached the desired fan value. Well, Element X can literally kill gods, so I guess the fan values required would be massive. Man, if I bring Superman from the comics the gods here will perish. John said. Any other feature of the update? The host can bring any one item from all the movies, series, animes and games that the host has yet created in his motion pictures to real life free of cost and can add all powers from all the versions that have been drawn or written in comics, manga or even books. For example, the host can get the Zanpakuto of Ishigo Kurosaki, and also can get all the powers of Zangetsu and even the powers during the last arc of Bleach from manga free of cost. This is a one-time thing for the host, so it is advised that the host chooses the item carefully. The host can now extract any item that he wishes to from the previous world. Even Marvel Comics. But the host still wouldn't be able to extract characters from Marvel series or movies as it would create a huge disruption in the continuity of the universe. And now the host can summon in the range of a galaxy. Really? That's great. Give me the Dragon Balls from Dragon Ball Z. John said. Ding. Error. There are 7 Dragon Balls, so only one can be extracted. Does the host wish to extract? Jesus. Can't even get around the system. John lamented but kind of expected it, as there were 7 balls and there was an option for only one item. John needed to choose an item very carefully. An item that will give him immense power. John at first started going through the comics which he had known and even thought of chakra fruit again as it was there in the manga. But this time John had more options, unlike the previous update. He can go through all the comics and manga that he knows. He spent 100 million fan values to extract all manga and comics from his previous world. Since Justice League Unlimited was out, so he had now access to many DC items which he never had access before. And even go through manga to search for an item that could boost him. John took an entire week to go through all the manga. DC Comics was what took time for him. There were many versions of comics in DC, so he had to have a proper knowledge. System, give me Element X. John said, as Element X of the DC universe could basically give him the power of reality alteration, power augmentation and even precognition of past and future. He would be basically a god after he could get his hands on it. Ding. Error. The Element X has never been mentioned or talked about in any DC series or movies. Thus it can't be extracted. Only an item which has been spoken about or shown in the movies or series. F***K. Okay, fine. Let me go through it again. John said as he again went through and made notes of all the powerful items he could find that had been mentioned in the movies. And after another week of research he finally found an item which could almost push him to godlike being. Fine, it will be you then. The comics speaks a lot about your powers, but it's a pity it was never shown in the series. John lamented. System, extract the Helmet of Fate with all the powers from the comics. Including being the Lord of Order. Ding. Requirement met. Since the Helmet of Fate has various items inside like the Amulet of Anubis, Cloak of Destiny and Tower of Fate, does the host want to extract them too? Really? I thought the Amulet of Anubis was kind of separated, but probably because I have chosen the path of Lord of Order it comes with that. Keep the Tower of Fate. Extract the other 3 items. John said. The next moment there was a golden helmet which only had 2 eye sockets levitated in front of him. The helmet looked like a medieval period's head armor, but John knew that when someone wears the helmet he or she will be the Sorcerer Supreme. Especially wearing this version of Helmet of Fate which was imbued with all the powers of the comics. Nabu, can you hear me? John asked. Yes. A voice came from inside the helmet. Nabu was the last Lord of Order before he transferred his spirit to the Helmet of Fate and directed whoever possesses the Helmet of Fate in future and takes over the mantle of Sorcerer Supreme. In comics it was Kent Nelson who took the first mantle of Sorcerer Supreme. The Helmet of Fate, which makes the person as Dr. Fate, can essentially be said as Doctor Strange's counterpart in DC. Dr. Fate is supposed to appear in the Black Adam movie before John got transmigrated. Being a Sorcerer Supreme, Dr. Fate has immense powers like teleportation across multiverses, flight, superhuman speed and strength and all kinds of magic. The Helmet of Fate itself has an universe inside. The person who dons the Helmet of Fate would have all knowledge of magic. And the Amulet of Anubis is said to be the counterpart of the Eye of Agamotto. Of course the Amulet of Anubis wasn't as powerful as the Time Stone, but the amulet gives Dr. Fate the power to see through illusions, increase the sorcery of the user and even magnify the perception of the user, giving him cosmic awareness. The Cloak of Destiny was like Doctor Strange's Cloak of Levitation. Little is known about the cloak, but it was also considered as a very powerful magical item. John wanted to have defense against magic as he didn't have any knowledge about magic. John knew he couldn't take the path of magic from the very beginning as he wouldn't have that much time. But using the Helmet of Fate he would be very powerful. Just the simple power of traveling through multiverses excited him, as finally he could go and look into different multiverses of Marvel and get to know more people. Nabu, let me share the knowledge of the universe with you, John said as he shared the knowledge of Marvel with Nabu. After few seconds Nabu finally said, "This world is dangerous too. I wonder how I landed here." "Thanks for helping me though," John said. "Well, I would be taking the mantle of Sorcerer Supreme now. So I can't complain, can I?" John said with a smile. John took the levitating helmet and finally wore it on his head. The moment he wore the helmet, his whole clothes changed instantly. His clothes now looked almost like Doctor Strange's clothes. The only difference was that he had a different amulet hanging from his neck and had a golden cloak behind him. John was struck with immense magical knowledge in his head as tons of information and knowledge was thrown at him. It took a full 10 minutes for John to digest the whole knowledge. He was in awe with the magical power and knowledge he possessed now. He even felt that the Ancient One wouldn't be his match. Now he could easily teleport anywhere and even teleport to distant galaxies. He wouldn't need boom tubes anymore. This power alone granted him immense convenience. The Helmet of Fate even granted him immortality. That didn't mean that he can't be killed, but that he would not age when wearing the helmet. Being a Lord of Order comes with many perks, and this was one of them. "Nabu, I hope you will guide me in this perilous journey ahead," John said. "Gladly," Nabu said from the helmet. "Now shall we meet the other Sorcerer Supreme?" John said as he directly teleported to Kamataj, directly leaving behind a glowing symbol of Ankh for a few seconds, which was the Egyptian symbol of life. The next moment he appeared was over the courtyard of Kamataj where the students were practicing. The moment he appeared there was a flash of light, so everybody saw that. The mags who saw a man appearing out of thin air immediately took magic defense as they weren't sure how this man appeared out of thin air. Mordo, who was present, also saw that, took out his staff. John, who saw this, smiled, but he knew his smile wouldn't be visible to anyone. So he took his helmet off. Even though he took his helmet off, the Cloak of Destiny and the amulet remained. Though John would lose magic powers due to that, simple magic could be done with the help of the other two items. Everybody was surprised to John as many here knew him. Wang and Mordo had seen him before coming to Kamataj. But they had never seen John in such a way. John levitated down slowly while the helmet floated on the side by itself. The mags could instantly tell that the helmet was a magical item. "What happened? Don't recognize me?" John asked Mordo and Wang, whose spells were still activated. "You are really John Jameson. What is this new thing?" Mordo asked. "Well, now I finally know magic. So I came to pay the Ancient One a visit. Don't worry, I am not here to attack or something," John said. Mordo and Wang, who had known John from beginning, believed him even though they didn't understand where John got magical knowledge, as Kamataj was the only source of magical knowledge. Both of them deactivated their magic and other followed him. John didn't look evil in any way, but they were just surprised that John now had access to magic too. Kesalius too was present when John had arrived. His eyes twinkled as he thought of something looking at John. The Ancient One is inside. You can go in, Mordo said as he followed John. He was curious about the helmet, so he went to the main hall inside. Mordo could also tell that the golden cloak and even the amulet of John were magical items. John walked right in to see the Ancient One standing and waiting for him. She saw the floating helmet for quite some time and even at John's other two magical items without saying anything. Are you not going to say something? John finally couldn't hold himself and asked. Can you control the power? She finally asked. Yes. Nabu, you can speak with her. John said. Hello, sorcerer. I am Nabu, the last Lord of Order. A voice from Helmet said. Mordo was taken aback as he had never seen a magical item speak, but the Ancient One looked calm as if expecting that the helmet could speak. Are you the god that had been directing him from behind the scenes? The Ancient One asked directly. No, the power behind John is more powerful. I am not sure who or what is the power behind, but that entity seems to be very powerful. Nabu said as John had directed him to lie. I understand. Well, John, how does it feel to be on the magic side? The Ancient One asked. It's more amazing than I realized. The helmet has immense power than even I didn't expect. John said. Yes. I can feel the immense magic power inside it. So your name is Nabu. Nice to meet you. The Ancient One finally greeted Nabu. Nice to meet you too. Nabu replied. Mordo, do you want to have a duel with me? John asked Mordo as he saw Mordo still being interested. Can I? Mordo asked as he was interested. Even the Ancient One was interested. Why not? We can battle in the mirror dimension, John said as he put on the helmet. John then directly opened the mirror dimension with the wave of his hand as he already had all of the knowledge. John and Mordo went inside followed by the Ancient One. You don't have the sling ring to go outside of mirror dimension, Mordo reminded. I don't need it, Mordo. The helmet provides all the powers, John said. Wow. That must be really convenient, Mordo said as he activated his staff and his boots. John on the other hand waved his hands, changing the whole surrounding according to his need while levitating. You can fold space and matter so easily. Mordo was surprised. I can do that in reality too, John said while eyeing the Ancient One as she could do that too due to her connection to Dormammu. Ha! You possess that much magic power. Mordo was more surprised now. John didn't reply to that and vanished from his place and appeared next to Mordo. Mordo, who was ready, defended using magic. John conjured two magical discs and threw towards Mordo. Mordo, after being struck by John, had to take steps back after the first strike of John. As he saw the magical discs, he again conjured rings of Ragador as a shield to defend against the flying discs. The force generated made Mordo take more steps back. He was on the verge of fall, but his boots helped him to stop it. So how was it? John asked. You have too much magic power. But I haven't lost yet, Mordo said as he took the staff and hit John while using the boots to accelerate towards John. John had to defend this time. He conjured a rope made of magic and used it as a lasso to wrap around the staff. John then proceeded to divert the staff away from him. This prompted Mordo to lose his balance as he was still holding the staff. John saw this as a chance and directly used his hands to hit the abdomen of Mordo. Of course he didn't use his superhuman strength as that would kill Mordo. Mordo winced in pain after being hit in the abdomen. John didn't attack anymore. He knew he had already won. After a few seconds, Mordo finally stood up, still clutching his abdomen. How did you deflect the staff so easily? That's a magical item, Mordo said. Because I belong to the same line as the Ancient One. My powers are like Sorcerer Supreme, John said. Huh. Wait, your magical artifact comes from another universe? Mordo asked as he was surprised. Yes. You have heard Nabu. He chooses the Sorcerer Supreme. And in this universe I am the new Sorcerer Supreme. Well, the Ancient One is there, so I am just a lazy guy here to help if and when required, John replied. You are the new Sorcerer Supreme. That's great. We now have another defense against people who use dark magic, Mordo said. You trusted me that fast. What if I am bad? John asked. The Ancient One approves of you, so I believe you, Mordo said. I am not perfect, Mordo. Neither is anyone in this universe. We commit mistakes. Don't idolize anyone. It doesn't end well, John reminded Mordo as he went astray later, after he found out that the Ancient One snatched powers from Dark Dimension. Mordo was silent when John said that. Even the Ancient One once reminded him of that, but he had full trust on the Ancient One always. John waved his hands and the mirror dimension closed in on itself. Mordo was more surprised by this as he took all of them out of the mirror dimension with just a wave. He knew now that John was on a whole new level. Mordo, no need to tell my story to others. Just tell them I know magic. I don't want attention, John said. Sure. So what do you think? John asked the Ancient One. Your magic needs more refining. Nabu will help you with that, I guess, the Ancient One said. Yes. I will practice more. Knowledge won't amount to anything if I don't have the power to use it perfectly, John replied. Okay, I am off, John said as he vanished from his spot, leaving a glowing ink sign for a second. That magic power looks more convenient, Mordo said. His power is close to a god. The title Lord of Order has a different meaning, I presume, the Ancient One said. What? Why didn't you ask about it? Mordo asked. It's his private matter. When the time comes, everything will be revealed. It's good that we have another warrior against evil magic from other dimensions, the Ancient One said. John returned to his home. Now he could replace his home with the Tower of Fate, and he had a specific place in his mind to settle down the Tower of Fate, which would be done later. John went back to work as usual, and he didn't inform anyone of his newly acquired powers. The superhero movie would be out soon, so he was working for it. Soon it was December, and like every time, everybody came for the premiere. Emma couldn't make it this time as all the Green Lanterns were still searching for the Kryptonian ship, and even after 2 months of searching nobody got any hint of it. Tony and all appeared for the premiere, and Tony had given a huge amount of information that John didn't expect to hear. The extremis virus of mine has perfectly blended with the nano-vibranium armor. Now the vibranium armor could come out of the skin and even self-heal. So basically what John had asked me to do, I have finished it. Ha! Ryan, is that true? John asked Ryan. Yes. Helen and Maya helped in making the armor. We are now in the process of making one for Wayne, Ryan replied while holding the hand of Dr. Helen. Apparently they had started dating. John was happy to see that his summons were leading a normal life. Even Steve showed up with Diana. Let's go inside. Can't wait for the new movie. It's a movie about you, Flash. Yes. Banner asked. Yes. But it's not a happy movie. Flash replied as he knew the story from the beginning when he heard the name of the movie. Everybody was confused by what Flash meant by that. The movie started with a boy with his mom getting struck on a highway with their car malfunctioning. The boy waved his hands to the cars which passed by asking for help, but none stopped. The boy got angry about this, but his mother then told him, "Accept the things you cannot change, have the courage to change the things you can. And have the wisdom to know the difference." The scene changed where now the boy and the mother are eating dinner with his father at home. Suddenly out of nowhere streaks of blue and yellow lightning came inside his house. The streaks of blue and yellow lightning were circling around the table at high speeds. Before the boy could understand what had happened, he saw himself a mile away from his home. The boy didn't understand how he was outside his home, so he ran to his home. After getting home, he realized his mother had been murdered and his dad was framed in his mom's murder. Yes. The movie was Flashpoint Paradox. This movie was a combination of the animated and the series version. There was almost nobody to extract from the movie, so he just made this movie for fan value accumulation. Since the movie had both series and animated version, the system would evaluate the movie in collecting fan values. Any movie that was not based from his previous life is disqualified, and thus he could never follow the comics and make better movies, which he wanted to do for a long time, but the system never gave him the option to do. He hoped in next update the system will allow him to do so. The movie continued as now the boy has turned out to be Barry Allen, the Flash. The movie showed his origin as he was struck by a combination of lightning and an experiment gone wrong. After realizing he could run fast, he started doing good deeds for people. Fast forward into the future where he was battling many evil people and a villain named Reverse Flash. The audience noticed one thing. It was that when Barry and Reverse Flash ran, it produced the same color of lightning as was during her mother's death. After a fight against the evil villains with the help of Justice League, Barry was able to stop Reverse Flash in killing everyone in the city. But Barry wasn't happy even after fighting all the crimes, and he did something which none of the audience expected. He time traveled to the past to save his mother. This was where he realized that her mother was killed by Reverse Flash. And he even saw himself. Barry ran to save both himself and his mother. Since Barry had changed the timeline, now the one who was fighting the Reverse Flash at his old home vanished. Barry then returned to his own time as he knew he had saved his mom and their family would be whole again. As he returned to his time, he was happy to be with his family again, but soon understood that something was wrong with this world. Atlantis and Amazon were at war against each other. There was no Superman in the whole of Earth. Barry realized he needed to stop the war, so he went to find Bruce Wayne. There too he got the shock of his life. It was Bruce who died in that alley that day. His father Thomas Wayne took the mantle of Batman while his mother turned into Joker. Cyborg was present in the universe, but there was only so much a single man could do. This was where the people saw a new superhero. Shazam. A group of children, when uttering the word Shazam, they could turn into a single entity which had powers like Thor. Hal Jordan didn't become the Green Lantern as the Lantern Ring never chose him. And the government captured Abin Sur's alien ship. The movie continued as the whole situation went from bad to worse. Flash tried to help everywhere he could, but the war between Amazonians and Atlanteans destroyed countries after countries. and nothing the countries could do to stop it. At the end, Flash understood that this whole thing had happened because of him. The Reverse Flash showed up telling him that this world was his creation. This world was created because Barry Allen wanted to save his mother. After a fight between him and Flash, surprisingly Thomas Wayne was able to kill the Reverse Flash with a gun, as he had let his guard down after beating down the Flash. Meanwhile, Arthur, who was losing the war, unleashed Captain Atom. Many recognized him from the Justice League Unlimited Animates series. As Captain Atom was unleashed, this caused a massive nuclear bomb capable of destroying the whole planet. Flash, who was being beaten down, understood he needed to go back in time so that Reverse Flash could kill his mother and stop himself from saving the other him. So that's what he did. He ran like never before and reached the same old home only to stop Reverse Flash from killing the young him. He had to let Reverse Flash kill his mother. This was one of the most toughest decisions he took, but he took it to save everyone. Barry then returned back in his time and saw everything was back to normal. Though there were changes, but that was acceptable as he had messed with the timeline and no broken timeline could be put back in place exactly as the previous one. Barry even brought a letter from Thomas to Bruce. He was thankful for such a gift. Now everybody understood why Flash had said that this movie wasn't really a happy one. So now there are two timelines, the real timeline and a little bit broken timeline. Tony said as he understood time travel pretty well and its implications. Yes. No wonder you always said never to cross the speed of light. Pietro said as he too came with Flash. Wanda and others didn't come as they would be easily recognizable here. They would be watching the movie from other places. Will you ever reach the speed of light? Tony mocked him. Pietro had a gloomy face when Tony said that. As the movie ended, it was now time for post-credits scene like always. The movie showed many normal people seeing other people as terrifying monsters. A woman used her car to kill many people in open streets as she thought they were monsters. A man who saw his own family as monsters took up gun to kill his own family, and even a mother who had given birth to a newborn was ready to throw her own child because she saw her child as a demon. It looked scary. What is this? Earth invaded by different aliens? Steve asked. No. It's magic. Wayne replied. Is he coming? He asked John. Yes. The greatest prick of the team who will make Tony look cute. John replied. Hey, I am not that bad. I am just way ahead of all of you. But who are you talking about? Tony asked. John Constantine. John replied. Fury, who was listening to the conversation, had a weird face now. The world was slowly becoming unrecognizable for him. Now they would be in magical territory. He felt he should retire soon and take rest. Coulson had been working perfectly and he would be the next director, so he was ready to give away his seat to a new director. Everybody went back after the movie ended. The audience didn't expect the movie would be so serious. Some even questioned with if they belonged to the real timeline or a broken one. The next day there were actually many forums discussing about the movie and the price of time travel. Flash was real as it was known now to everybody. Now the question was if their world was the original timeline or a broken one. John didn't expect the topic would get so serious by just a movie, but he didn't care. His fan values rose nonetheless, and since the story was a great one, people loved the movie. By his calculation, the new world could be extracted soon, in a few months, and he just needed to wait. John started working on the next movie, which would be out by the mid of next year, and the movie had a huge magic side, so he needed to be sure that magic is shown in a good way. John even used his own magical knowledge to give a proper portrayal to the magic side of the movie. A month went by and suddenly out of nowhere Gaia contacted him saying all the Avengers were summoned to the Jurassic Park including the witches. John was surprised by this sudden call but he went to Jurassic Park nonetheless. Only this time he directly teleported. The helmet of fate followed him everywhere though it remained invisible to others. John removed his helmet after appearing in the headquarters. Everybody was surprised when they saw John removing the helmet. Everybody had watched the Justice League Unlimited series so they knew what the helmet represented. Even though they didn't understand the power of Dr. Fate, but from small glimpses they could see that the character was very powerful. And now John possessed the helmet meaning he has the same powers as him. "You are Dr. Fate now?" Banner asked. "Yes. Let's leave my story for now. Why are we being called?" John asked as everybody had emerged from the boom tubes and portals. "Secretary Ross has called for all of Avengers to gather. He will be here to announce something," Wayne said. He was also being called as he was the Secretary of the World Council. Others still didn't know that he was Batman and everybody wanted to keep him that way. Clint had taken retirement after the debacle with Ultron as he had new child about to be born so he wanted to be with his wife for some time. "Ross? What is he here for?" John asked. "Apparently we are very dangerous and the governments will set some rules of our working," Tony replied. John raised his eyebrows when he heard that. Sokovia was assaulted but there were minimum casualties. Hardly 10 people died in that war and the Avengers weren't even responsible for what had happened so he didn't understand on what grounds the governments would try to control them. This was the setting of civil war but he had already changed that so he wanted to see on what pretext the Sokovia Accords would be implemented. John had already known that the governments might try to control them but didn't know that it would come like in the original version. Everybody took their seats while Bruce sat at the head chair as he was the Secretary of the World Council. He was the invisible leader of the group and he was the one who took final decisions for the Avengers. Even John and Steve trusted Bruce's wisdom as his wisdom was at the top level. Batman had an invisible charisma which made everyone trust him more. After they took their seats, Secretary Ross came with a huge file. John squinted his eyes when he looked at him. The first mission that John personally undertook was against Ross and he still remembered the slap that he gave him. After coming to the table Ross said, "5 years ago I had a heart attack." Ross said, "Get to the point, Secretary. We all have work to do." John cut right into him and said. He really didn't like politicians and their schemes. He just wanted to see what they had planned this time. Ross turned stiff when John said that. Normally nobody would talk to him in that tone but it was John Jameson. The person who was behind every major change that the Earth has seen in decades. "Okay, I will cut straight to the point. The last 4 years each one of you have operated under no control or supervision whatsoever. Many people will hail you as heroes but there are some who are not very fond of you. Thus the governments have come to an arrangement. The Sokovia Accords," Ross said as he handed the file over to Natasha. 117 countries have signed the accords. This will state that the Avengers organization will work under the United Nations panel. Each one of you will be registered in the accord and the people belonging to the group will only go into mission if and when the UN panel deems it necessary. Ross said. "I guess the accords have the provision of registering every powered being on the planet." "Yes?" John asked. "Yes, Mr. Jameson," Ross replied. Who gave the first proposal of setting the accords? John asked this time. Wakanda. They are one of the most poor countries in the world. Even they think that the Avengers had been working under no control. Just imagine. A country who has nothing to fear has asked for this. Ross said. John smirked when Ross said this. You have a week to accept the accords and come under the panel. The UN panel wants the names and identity of all the members of the Avengers. Ross said to Wayne as Batman was still unknown to the people. Ross even suspected that Wayne was Batman but never could prove it. Have you informed the Kidges about it? John asked. The Kidges too would have their name registered in the accords as the government will negotiate with them the terms. There will be a difference, but yes, their names will also be registered. Ross said as all the governments know the presence of Naruto's world. Go tell the UN panel. The Avengers won't accept any such accords and the governments can shove the accords up their ***s for all I care. John finally said in a cold tone. Is that the answer of the Avengers? Ross said as his eyes fell on Wayne. Everybody was silent in the whole meeting and somehow everybody expected this response from John. John never liked any kind of supervision from anyone. It was the sole reason he built such a huge empire, to be away from the control of everyone. The governments just poked a sleeping bear with the accords. Truth to be said, nobody liked the accords. Not even Tony, who supported it in the original story. Tony accepted the accords before because he was ridden with guilt when he made Ultron. But it was different this time. They had done nothing but good for the people. Be it better living, better facilities to everyone, and even gave the people of Earth a dream. A dream to travel in space. Umbrella has covered almost every aspect of life and it is slowly becoming larger than what the countries could ever be. Wayne just shrugged his shoulders to the question of Ross. Being a summon of John, he could never go against the wishes of John, nor did he like the accords. He had seen what politics could lead to. You all have a week. If it's not signed, everybody here will be declared as terrorist after 7 days. Ross said. Ross, do you remember that slap from B? John suddenly asked as he saw Ross leaving. Ross trembled when John said that and almost unconsciously touched his face. That was his greatest humiliation in his life. How do you know this? Ross asked in an angry tone. Hydra got decimated because they thought politics is power. Power is power, Ross. Remember that. John said and walked away. Is that a threat? Ross asked John, who was walking away. Think of whatever you want. Came the voice to Ross. The doors closed and Ross had to leave. He was red-faced as he didn't expect they wouldn't even care for the accords. He felt there might be some voices who would be with the accords, but surprisingly none did. Not even Rhodes, who finally left the military under the insistence of Tony and joined the Avengers. The Avengers even paid salary to all with every benefits. He just couldn't say no. He was also tired of all the baggage that he had to carry after becoming Iron Patriot. So he too left for Avengers. After Ross left, everybody was silent. Nobody uttered a word. Gaia too was listening to this and finally broke the silence. Do you want me to bring all the dirty work of all the countries? No. Gaia, connect me to King T-Shaker. I need to talk with him. John said. Gaia called him directly and soon a video opened showing a little old man with almost all his hair turned white. Hello. Mr. Jameson, to what do I owe the pleasure of your call? The old man said. Hello, King T-Shaker. I guess you have already got the report of us not accepting the accords. John said in a straight manner. Yes. Secretary Ross has sent the response of you. The king replied with a smile as if the response didn't bother him. What do you want, king? I am sure you didn't propose the accords just because you are afraid of us. What is your real purpose? John asked. I don't understand what you mean, Mr. Jameson. The king replied. You know exactly what I mean. Just tell me your purpose. I hate politics and their roundabout ways to achieve something. So tell me your real purpose before it's too late. John said. Mr. Jameson, I really don't understand what you mean by that. The king insisted. So be it. Don't regret the decision you have just taken. John said as he cut the call. Everybody didn't understand why John called the king, as Wakanda was one of the most poor countries, but it still baffled many of why Wakanda proposed the accords when no country of Africa was affected in any way in all of this. What are you thinking, John? Natasha asked. John didn't reply as he directly wore the helmet. He closed his eyes for a few seconds and vanished from his place. Everybody was confused of what just happened. John appeared again, but this time with a man. A man who had dreadlocks in his head. He wore half sleeves but had weird small skin markings all over his hands. It was Eric Stevens, the Killmonger. Heir to the throne of Wakanda, just like T'Challa. Eric didn't understand of what just happened and he immediately became ready to fight, but when he looked around he was astonished to his peak. Everybody present belonged to the Avengers. He knew that all high former training would amount to nothing with literally gods being present here. What do you want from me? Killmonger asked as he didn't understand why he was caught and brought here. John could find Eric because now he had cosmic awareness. John could find anyone that he wished for in all of universe, and even multiverses. Even some weak gods. The magic of the Helmet of Fate gave him many powers, this was one of them. Who is this guy? Steve asked. Eric Stevens, heir to the throne of Wakanda. Since Wakanda doesn't want to say what it wants, I will bring the truth out myself. John said. Heir to the throne. Do you want to replace the king with him? Banner asked as he knew how monarchy worked. That depends on him. Eric, don't you want revenge? This would be your chance. John said. How do you know of my inheritance? Killmonger was surprised that a person who wore a weird golden helmet knew of him and even his inheritance. But, yes, Eric did wish for vengeance for killing his father. It doesn't matter how I know. Just say if you want revenge. John asked again. Yes. I want him to pay for killing my father. Eric replied. Good. Everybody suit up. This might not be a smooth journey. John said. Are you going to make a coup in the throne of Wakanda? Is that even required? Roads. Wakanda had been hidden in shadows for a long time. They are the most advanced country in the world. You saw the vibranium. Vibranium was a meteorite that struck their country centuries ago. That metal empowered them and made them possess technology far ahead of other countries. What we see from outside is just a facade. A hologram. A city covered by it. Their technology is way ahead than you can even imagine. John said. Wait. What? What do you mean? The most advanced country on Earth. Aren't they a third world country? Pietro asked. No. Think of them as Atlantis on land. That's what they are. John said. Damn. Never knew we had Atlantis here. Tony said. They have fooled everyone. Even the governments. Yes, they did. But since they wanted to poke me, I will poke them and see who has greater power. Bruce, where is Clow? John said. He is in the prison that we made in the park for all the bad people that we don't kill. We can't be savages every time now, Tony said. John closed his eyes for a second and vanished. He went to bring Clow. Killmonger was still shaken by what just happened. Never in his life he expected that he would catch the eye of an Avenger. Even though he didn't know who this new Avenger was, it looked like he had a high command in the team. He recognized everyone in the team. Wayne had a mask on his face so he didn't get to see Batman's face, but others he knew by heart. Like others, he too went through all the works of John. That was the standard procedure now for all military personnels. He even knew the witches. He just didn't know who the man in the golden helmet was, as he had never appeared. As he was thinking that, John appeared again with Clow. He still didn't have one hand from the last time John cut it off. Clow was sleeping when John appeared. John just held him by his collar and vanished with him. Clow woke up only to see his worst nightmare appearing again. What John showed him before his hand was cut had etched into his soul all his life. Okay, is everybody ready? John asked. Yes. Good. Let's vanish, John said as the Ankh symbol again appeared behind him. But this everybody vanished with John. The whole team appeared in a huge hall where there was a throne where King T-Shaker sat, including other heads of the tribe on the seats adjacent to it. The king was taken aback by the sudden emergence of so many people in the main hall. The Dora Milaje, King's personal guards who were nearby, attacked directly the moment they appeared, as it was their duty to protect the king. John just stood there while the other members handled the Dora Milaje. Even though they were pretty powerful, they still fell short of the Avengers. Especially now when Tony and Bruce had vibranium armor. After a minute every member of the Dora Milaje was lying down. Flash, Siri and the witches didn't take too much time to defeat everyone. The king who saw stood up. He didn't expect the Avengers would appear right here, in the main hall. Truth to be told, he was a little afraid of the Avengers. When the world engine arrived, he understood that the technology of Earth would again be boosted and it would be a matter of time before Wakanda was exposed. They had been hidden in the shadows for such a long time, and in order to continue that legacy he needed to take measures. Thus he took the measure of making the Accords, and since Wakanda had spies everywhere it was easy to manipulate the governments to accept the Accords. When John called last time, he didn't pay much heed to him, as he thought no matter what they wouldn't cross any line. But now he understood that he was wrong, so very wrong. The power shown by the Avengers amazed him too. They seemed more powerful than in the videos. John put away his helmet after everything became silent. The heads of the tribe were trembling as they knew their lives were now in the hands of the Avengers. The king still tried to maintain his calmness, as he knew that if the Avengers killed him then it would be game over for the Avengers. He just wanted to see what they want to do. Got to say, you fooled the whole planet, King T-Shaker, Wayne said. So what of it? Are you going to kill me because of that? I was right about you all. You are dangerous, King refuted. We are dangerous, but you still messed with us. That wasn't very thoughtful of you. Was it? Gerald said. Why are you all here? To show us your power. Or to kill me? T-Shaker said. We are here to show the country what kind of person you are, John replied this time. I guess the royal members are already informed about this assault. Let's wait for them, shall we? John said as he sat on a seat opposite the throne. After a minute more, Dora Milaje appeared with T'Challa, Shuri, their mother, and even Zuli, a trusted confidant of T'Chaka. T'Chaka came while wearing the Black Panther suit, and the moment he entered the hall, Geralt used Ard on him. It threw T'Chaka a few meters away. "Stay down, boy," Geralt said. T'Chaka got up to attack again while the remaining Dora Milaje charged. John sighed as he wore his helmet and waved his hand. Yellow ropes emerged from the ground and bounded the hands of all of the members of the Dora Milaje. This was the magic of Dr. Fate. He even proceeded to bind the hands of the Black Panther and brought the hands down. Thus everybody was on their knees. "You are Dr. Fate, aren't you?" T'Chaka asked. "I am honored that the King of Wakanda follows my works," John replied. "Let's not talk about my work, but yours. Since everybody is here, it's time for revelation. What do you want to reveal?" "That you are a murderer," Shuri shouted. Her mother got scared and she held her mouth so that she didn't antagonize the Avengers more. They knew they were on tight ropes now. The Avengers have never killed anyone which they didn't deserve. "Did you see us killing any member of the Dora Milaje?" "No. We aren't here to kill anybody but to show you all the true face of your father. He is a murderer. He killed his own brother just so because his brother wanted a better world," John said, pointing at King T'Chaka. Zuli and T'Chaka shuddered when John said that. Shuri and her mother's eyes went wide. "That's a lie. My father would never do that." "What a good lie to fool everyone." T'Challa spoke for the first time. "Lie. Eric, show them your Wakandan heritage," John replied. Eric showed the inner part of her mouth to show that he belonged to Wakanda. "He is the son of your brother who you so easily murdered. You left your nephew because you didn't want anything to do with him. Isn't it right, King T'Chaka? I wonder what the law is here for fratricide. If you want more proof, ask Zuli. He was present there when King T'Chaka murdered his brother," John said. "That's a lie. He retaliated because King T'Chaka wanted to save me." Zuli spoke for the first time. Everybody in the room was surprised by this sudden acceptance of the incident that John just spoke about. Shuri and others couldn't believe that what John said was the truth. "So you do accept that King T'Chaka killed his brother?" John spoke. "Yes, but he did that to save me," Zuli insisted. "Zuli. He is the Black Panther." "The Black Panther? Do you think I am a fool not to understand what that title represents? He is basically Captain America with vibranium armor. And you are telling me that he really had to kill his brother to save you?" John said with a smile. The Avengers didn't expect that the king was a powered being. Now when they thought about it, T'Challa too was probably a super-powered being, as the reflexes which he had shown aren't shown by normal people. All the Avengers were listening intently to the story of the King T'Chaka and finally understood why John was so sure that he could usurp the throne. "WKB, leader of the Border Tribe. I guess you know this guy. The murderer of your parents. This is my gift to you. I hope you can help me in invoking a proper trial for your king," John said as he pointed to Clow, who was standing beside holding his hand. The moment he appeared in the hall, he knew that he was done for. WKB hesitated for a second but then made a determination. He had to go against his own king, but in exchange he would get his hands on the murderer of his parents. Clow had been hiding for a long time and now finally he was caught. "WKB, no. You will betray the king if you do that. Ramanda, Queen of Wakanda, said. Betrayal. Even if Clow wasn't here, I would have made sure that the truth of his brother's murder was out for the people of Wakanda to see. Do you think the people will accept a king who murdered his own brother? I am sure the Jabari tribe would be very happy seeing that the Wakandan king had fallen to such lows. John said. How do you know all this? You seem to know everything about us. Ramanda asked. Doesn't matter how I know. King T'Chaka, don't you want to say anything in your defense? You have been eerily silent all this time. John said. The moment you all stepped into the hall, I knew that I couldn't escape. I just didn't expect that you would bring me down in this way. I do accept that I had killed my own brother and I am ready to face the trial, but only on one condition. T'Chaka said. You don't have the leverage to negotiate with me, King T'Chaka. In the call I asked you for the reason you proposed for the accords. You didn't reply. That time I told you that you would regret this. John said. T'Chaka sighed as he really didn't expect that everything would turn out like this. He should have spoken clearly with John before and should have trusted the Avengers. Tony and Batman had vibranium armor. You can't expect us not to retaliate. T'Chaka spoke in his defense for the first time. That vibranium was stolen from your country by Clow, not by us. If you wanted the vibranium you could have spoken to us, but instead you went behind our backs. Wayne replied this time. You don't get to cry victim when you yourself initiated the fight. Diana said. T'Chaka knew he was wrong and his past had come back now to haunt him. Eric will battle for the throne against T'Challa since that is the custom here. We won't interfere. Wakanda doesn't matter to the Avengers anymore. If there is any kind of retaliation from Wakanda, then I will personally send the country back to the third world category. And this time it won't be a sham. John said. I am curious, what condition you wanted to ask King T'Chaka? Hal asked. I just hoped that Wakanda can continue remaining in the shadows. T'Chaka said with a sigh. That will depend on the next king. I don't care about what happens. I will keep a lookout in this country and I want the trial to proceed. If nothing is done, I will make sure that everybody knows of what had happened in the past. John said as he vanished with the other Avengers, leaving Eric and Clow behind. He wouldn't care about Wakanda anymore as now he had more important things to do. That is to uproot the members of the government that had been an eyesore for him for a long time. Even though Umbrella has had huge influence, it was still sometimes overwhelmed by bureaucracy. Wayne and John had already thought about the purge and they needed to carry it this week. That was one hell of a trip. It's a pity we didn't get to see such an awesome country for a long time. Pietro said. We will have a much bigger and better country for ourselves. John replied. Really? A new world. Can't wait for it. Pietro said excitedly. Steve, Wayne, I need to show you someone. John said. Someone? Sure. Steve replied. Others, you can all go home. The Sokovia Accords will never see the light of day. I can assure you. SHIELD had been infiltrating all major walks of life and government too. We will just replace those people who are actively giving us problems. We need to get ready for the arrival of the new world because they will arrive in a few months. We don't have much time. John said. Which new world is coming? Now I am really curious. Will it be dangerous? Hal asked as he was interested in new people. Dangerous? Yes. They are. But they are controllable, John said. Everybody went to their own places as Victor opened boom tubes for all. Only Steve, Wayne and John remained. John again teleported with them to a place which looked like the Himalayas. There was snow and high mountains. There was also a huge palace-like structure built on the sides of the mountain. Is that what I think it is? Wayne asked. Yes. This is the headquarters of the League of Assassins, John replied as he really brought Steve and Wayne here. He was here for a reason. When Ras Al Ghul was extracted, it was done in order to give the League to Steve. Steve had a straight moral compass and he could lead the League perfectly. John knew he could do the same with Ras as he had proper control over everybody here, but he wanted all members of the Avengers to have equal strength and Steve was seriously lacking in this regard. And after he saw Steve dating Diana, he was more determined to give the League to Steve. He wanted Steve to have a happy story, and since he couldn't go back in time, it was better to give him more time. John was a selfish man, so he wouldn't hesitate to kill people to cover his interests, but Steve was more morally straight and he thought it would be better to have someone to always show him the correct path. John feared that he would become arrogant in the future with all the powers he possesses, and he wanted to make sure there was someone who could direct his path if he ever goes astray. And Steve was the perfect candidate for that. And it could only be done if Steve had a long life. The Lazarus Pit could easily provide him that. The League of Ras Al Ghul. Did they arrive in our world? Aren't they a very big organization? Don't we need all the members to fight them? Steve asked. We are not here to fight, John said. Then what are we here for? Steve asked as he was confused. Batman knows why we are here, John said. The old man still hasn't given up the obsession, Wayne asked. Nope. He negotiated with me about that. This is the only way, John said. Guys, what do you mean by that? Steve asked as he was more confused now. He means that Ras wants to choose an heir. And you, Steve, is the perfect candidate for leading the League, Wayne said to Steve. You mean the story of him wanting Oliver to replace him is real? He still hasn't stopped searching, Steve asked as he had seen the Green Arrow series, as in the last season Ras wanted Oliver to be the leader of the League. Yes. He wanted me to be the leader, but I refused. So now we are here, Wayne said as he saw many members fully covered in black coming out from the main gate in an ordered manner. They took their positions in line and gave space to the middle. After a minute, Ras finally emerged with a huge coat walking. All the members of the League bowed down when he came out. Boy, is he the one that you have chosen? Ras asked as he came up to the trio. Yes. He is Steve Rogers, John said. Wait, I haven't even decided to take such a huge responsibility. I will never be the leader of such an evil organization, Steve replied. The League will whatever you picture it to be. If you want the League only to work for the good, then it shall be, John said. Provided you can kill Ras and take the mantle of leader. But why am I being chosen? I am pretty sure that there are other more capable members, Steve asked. I have been watching you, Steve Rogers, for a long time. Your will and commitment moved me. I am becoming old and both Wayne and Queen rejected me. I just want to give away my position and rest in peace, Ras said. There will be a duel in a week. I will wait for you here. If you can defeat and kill me, the League shall be yours. If you don't, you will die, Ras said as turned back and went away. The members too followed the leader. Ross still needed to show his arrogance and pride of being the leader of the League even though he was the summon of Jon. What a weird man. No wonder you never took the position of the leader. Is there no other way? Steve asked. The League has infiltrated in many places just like S.H.I.E.L.D. and we need a proper person as its head. Ross came to me to search for a worthy one, so I gave him your name. I am sorry, but I could only think of you. Only you have the best moral compass among us. Jon said. I will have to think about it before I make a decision. Steve said. Sure. Let's go back. Jon said as all the three vanished again and were back at the headquarters. Jon said goodbye to them and went back home. It had been a long day, so he wanted to have a rest. 7 days passed by very fast after that, as the S.H.I.E.L.D. was getting ready for the purge. The ratifying of Sokovia Accords was pushed back a few days as the main country who proposed the accords would apparently appoint a new king. This made every member of the UN panel surprised, and some even suspected that Avengers had their hands behind the change of the king. But it wouldn't matter as the accords were ready and it would proceed even if Wakanda backs away later. Jon on the other hand was back at Wakanda as this was the day when the new king would be crowned. Everybody gathered near the waterfall for the ceremonial fight. Even the Jabari tribe came as they were informed about the past of the king. In these 7 days King T'Chaka was in trial and he was sentenced with lifetime imprisonment. This was the law of the country, and the fear of Avengers made them sure that the trial was fair. Soon the fight between T'Challa and Eric started as T'Challa was stripped from the power of Black Panther. And the fight followed almost like the actual story. The only difference was that T'Challa didn't fall down from the cliff and was defeated fairly. Jon, who levitated above, saw all of this but didn't have any expression. He didn't care who sat on the throne as long as Wakanda didn't poke in their business. Jon levitated down to greet Eric one last time as he would leave. King Eric, how does it feel to be the king of Wakanda? I hope this revenge was fulfilling. Jon asked. Eric hesitated for a second but finally replied. I won't be the king of Wakanda. Eric said. Ha, what do you mean? Jon asked as he was surprised. All the tribe members who joined the ceremony were also surprised by this declaration, including T'Challa, as nobody expected Eric to say that. I have been here for the past 7 days. The people who know me here don't really look at me with good eyes, they treat me as an outsider. Even if I become their king, a time will come when they will stop listening to me. I never wanted to become the king, I just wanted revenge, and I think he has gotten the punishment which he deserved, even though I would have loved killing him myself. I have always wanted to change the world, and I don't think Wakanda has enough power to give me that. The Avengers and the Umbrella had been working towards that goal, and I would rather join them than this conservative country. Eric said. Jon never expected that Eric would ever say that. In the original world, Eric became the king because he wanted revenge and for changing the world for a better place. It seemed since Jon had touched the destiny of Eric, this made him take a different decision. Jon now wondered if TVA would come for him. Surprisingly, TVA didn't come for Pietro. And it was probably because he had warned Mobius and spoke of Alioth. This must have scared Kang a bit. Anyway, Jon didn't care but was happy to see Eric take a totally new decision. I understand. What are your plans now? Jon asked. Can I join the Avengers? Eric asked. You will have to talk to Wayne about that. He is the main person in the team. Jon said. So want to leave with me? Sure. I have nothing here. Eric said. John nodded and turned around to all other members of the tribe and said, "I think most of you know about my powers. I can dream of other parallel universes, and in this way I knew what actually happened before with the previous king. The funny thing is that in most parallel universes the Black Panther is one of the main members of the Avengers. Now we stand on opposite sides. As I said before, the Avengers won't interfere in Wakanda, but don't stand on the other side of us, it won't end well. Goodbye." John vanished with Eric after that. All the Wakandans were ashamed of what just happened. This was a huge blot in their reputation and even their pride. The Jabari were probably laughing at the other members of the tribe. M'Baku challenged T'Challa, and this fight would take place after a day as he just fought against Eric and was tired. Later T'Challa would be crowned as the king after defeating M'Baku, but that was a story for another day. John, after vanishing, appeared in the dimension of the League again with Eric. Eric thought he would be in Jurassic Park but didn't expect he was in snowy mountains. He even saw many people wearing full black standing in a circular manner near a cliff. On the edge of the cliff were two half-naked men. One was wielding a sword while the other a shield. Eric knew one of them. Captain Steve Rogers, but he didn't recognize the other guy. Yes, Captain had decided to accept the duel and was ready to fight Raz. He came to this dimension 2 days ago as he wanted to see how the League worked and would take concrete decisions only after seeing with his own eyes. Suffice to say, he was impressed by the discipline and training. The members were basically top-level assassins and they did almost all forms of combat. After much contemplation he finally decided to fight Raz. "Who is Captain America fighting?" Eric asked as he was curious. "Ra's al Ghul, the leader of the League of Assassins." John replied. "The League? They are real too. Why are they fighting? Aren't you gonna stop them?" Eric asked as he was surprised. "No. Steve is fighting to be the new leader of the League. He will fight to be the leader of the League." "Was Captain America defeated by the League before?" "Because as I remember, only who survives the sword of Ra's al Ghul will become the Ra's al Ghul," Eric asked. This surprised John as he never expected Eric to watch his works very minutely. "Don't always trust my work. That's just one part of the story. Raz is becoming old and he needs to give away his throne to someone. So we choose Steve to take the mantle and carry on. This would keep the League alive and well and have better control in the underground world." John replied. "I understand," Eric said. The fight started between Steve and Raz and it was intense. Captain used his shield to defend while Raz used his sword to attack. The fight went on for a full 1 hour. John and even the members of the League didn't expect that fight would go on for such a long time. Both were exhausted. Steve had many cuts in his body while Raz had many bruises due to how Steve used his shield. Even though it wasn't the vibranium shield, Steve still used it effectively. And after an intense clash, Steve was able to get the better of John and was able to disarm Raz by hitting the shield at his hand. The sword was thrown from Raz. Then Steve proceeded to tackle Raz with his shield. This prompted Raz to take a few steps back. Steve saw this opening and didn't hesitate anymore, as he took the lying sword and stabbed Raz directly in his abdomen. The League members knew that from now Steve would be their leader, and since he defeated Raz fair and square, nobody had any doubts about his position. Steve looked at Raz as he was on his knees at the edge of the cliff. "May you lead the League to greater glory. From now you have the power over the dimension of the League." And saying that, Raz fell down the cliff. John, who saw this side as he just lost Roz, though he could bring him back to life with the system. He just felt it was weird with almost the same plot repeating from the Arrow. Roz died there after falling from a cliff. Steve, who just defeated and killed Roz too, was on his knees. John levitated in front of him as all the members of the League too were on their knees in order to show respect to the new Roz. You should go to Lazarus Pit to heal yourself before those wounds get infected, John said. Can you take me there? I am really tired, Steve said. John smiled at it and vanished with Steve. They appeared again in a place which looked like a huge bathtub made of rocks. Steve didn't waste a second and directly jumped into the pit, only to emerge from the water after a few seconds. I gotta say, it feels weird with the healing power of the pit. I feel myself more powerful, younger and more energetic, Steve said. I have had no connections with Roz whatsoever, but strangely I respect him, even though he was evil. He didn't even flinch when I stabbed him. Now I am the leader of a place to which I have no idea about. I hope I can do a proper job, Steve said. You will do fine. Go through all the things that Roz had done and take steps accordingly. Remember, this is an underground organization, so work with caution. The League is a perfect way to control the dark side of the world, John said. Yes, you are right. This is a huge responsibility. I guess immortality has a cost, Steve joked. Well, now you and Diana can both lead a long and happy life, John said with a smile. Steve smiled at it as one of the main reasons he joined the League was because he could spend a long time with Diana, 4 centuries, which he could have never done before. As they were talking, Eric came with many members of the League. Eric didn't know where the Lazarus Pit was, so he had to ask for directions. Eric. What happened? Did you lose to T'Challa? Steve asked as he didn't know what happened at Wakanda. No. I won but gave away the throne. Don't want anything to do with such conservative country. I have changed my mind. Can I join the League? Eric asked. John eyed Steve when he said that Steve would make a decision on that. You can, but I will look into your behavior. You have been consumed by revenge all your life, so that hasn't been a good start. The League will evaluate you and only then you can join us, Steve replied, and now with the tone of a leader. He had already accepted the role, so he needed to act now as one. I am leaving. Eric will stay here then, John said as he vanished from his place. John was back at the headquarters where Wayne and Fury were present. They needed to carry out the purge as they had been thinking about it for a long time. The names they had brought out were some of the worst scum who were sitting in high positions but carried out criminal activities underground. Though all of them weren't in the UN panel, but a good number of them were. If they could just stick all the criminal charges on them, then the whole Accords would stop, as the recent news channels had been buzzing about it all day. The normal people didn't like it as the Avengers didn't do anything wrong, and many believed that the governments now were afraid of the Avengers and this was the reason they wanted to bring out the Accords. So how do you want to proceed into this? John asked as he removed his helmet. The helmet, like always, floated by his side. We will first go to the court and take out warrants after pressing charges with all the evidence we have. This will bring the whole empire down of these double-faced criminals, Fury said. Yes. We can do that, but there will be runners, Wayne said. Yes. We have put them under surveillance. Thanks to ninjas, Fury said with pride now, as the ninjas had totally integrated with S.H.I.E.L.D. The World Council were ecstatic when they knew that S.H.I.E.L.D. now had ninjas and finally they had their own private super-powered army. John just smiled looking at Fury as at the end S.H.I.E.L.D. was in his palms. Even though Fury hasn't given 2 high-level posts to the ninjas, but that day wasn't far. This slow integration was what John had wanted when he brought the Naruto world. This was his major plan from the start after dealing with Hydra. Fury and the duo then discussed of how to execute the purge and how they would handle the runners. S.H.I.E.L.D. will bring those who would try to escape directly to the law and press more charges with that. That would cement everything. Good. Get only the bad people. I know there are annoying ones who we would love to catch like Ross, but we can't be tyrants. Nothing good comes out of being total tyrants. Wayne said. Yes. I am aware of it. Fury replied. If by chance there are people who still go off the radar, contact me. I will find him. John said. Then can you get Wilson Fisk? Fury asked. Yes, but he is necessary evil. Sometimes evil is required so that heroes can rise. He is one of them. Don't worry if he crosses the line, I will bring him in. John said. Okay, I will look into this matter. Fury replied. Bruce, is the Hall of Justice ready? John asked. Yes. It's been built like we had before on the other side of the park. Looks huge and have more space. Bruce said. Good. This will be our Earth headquarters. John replied. They discussed more about the plan and the purge would start from tomorrow. All the officials were in place. So they were just waiting for execution. John left after discussing everything. And as Hay had planned, the next day there were multiple arrests all over the globe. The arrests were done almost at the same time, so the people knew this was a planned attack. But when the allegations came out against those government officials, the people were surprised. The people know that the governments were perfectly good, but they never thought that they were this bad. Now they understood why the Sokovia Accords were made, as the Accords would have made the Avengers their puppets. As many members of the UN panel were now missing, Wakanda too backed out from the Accords after T'Challa was appointed as the king. And as S.H.I.E.L.D. suspected, there were people who were trying to escape, but S.H.I.E.L.D. was ready and they were brought and were pressed more charges. The public came out to protest against the Accords all over the globe, as it was a ploy to control the Avengers. Ross, who was heading the whole Accords, knew he had lost the remote to control the Avengers. He directly called John. Did you do this? Ross asked. I don't understand what you are talking about. John replied after picking up his call. The arrests, Wakanda backing out. Did you do this? Ross asked again in an angry tone. The arrests were done by S.H.I.E.L.D. and the new king of Wakanda was appointed because their old king was a murderer. So no, I didn't do anything. John said. You will pay for this. Ross said angrily. John raised his eyebrows when he heard that. He directly wore the helmet and vanished from his place. The next moment he appeared was in the office of Ross. There were officials in the office when Ross made that call. Everybody had already took out their guns and were pointing at the Ankh symbol when John appeared. John, after arriving, waved his hands and energy constructs came out of the walls and the floors to disarm every one of them. Who are you? What do you want? Ross was the first to speak, as he had never seen a man wearing such a weird helmet before. John removed his helmet to show them his face. John Jameson. Never expected you to be wearing a weird helmet apart from having the Phoenix powers. Ross mocked. John didn't say anything and directly conjured a magical knife and placed directly at the throat of Ross. Ross wanted to move, only to see yellow constructs holding him down and not allowing him to move. I am not like others, Ross. Don't try my patience. I can overlook your treatment of Banner before, but don't even think for a second I am a soft one. I don't mind bringing out your darkest secrets and showing it to the public. John said. Ross became silent when he heard that. He knew he might have crossed the line here. This is the last warning, Ross, and to the White House. Don't meddle in our affairs. Or I don't mind appointing our own president. John said as he removed the constructs. John then wore the helmet again and vanished without even listening to Ross or the others. John didn't mind replacing the president, but he chose not to do so as he believed everybody has free will and they deserve their freedom. The moment he introduces a character and changes the politics, the people too would be his puppets. John didn't want that. It wasn't in his character. He could have killed Ross easily too, but this would create a turmoil and he didn't want any problems now when they were getting ready to welcome the new world. John returned home to go to work as usual. The Halo game would be out in 3 to 4 months and he couldn't wait to extract the Halo ring. He was checking with the CD Projekt Red and was waiting for the game to launch. Ross on the other hand was angry but felt fear too. He directed his officials to bring out the camera videos of John threatening them and even spoke about changing the president, but was surprised to see there was no such footage in the video. John used magic before he left so that nobody could ever point their fingers on him or the Avengers. How is this possible? How did he do that? Ross asked his officials. Sir, I think John now is Dr. Fate. He belongs to the magic side. It is said that whoever dons the helmet will become Dr. Fate. Provided he is chosen by the helmet, said an official as he had been watching Justice League Unlimited closely. Magic? Like the witches of Wolf School? Ross asked again as he knew about them. I don't know, sir. The official replied. The days went by like usual and the Accords were finally taken back after a huge backlash. All the officials who were engaged in criminal activities were brought to court in their respective countries. And S.H.I.E.L.D. made sure that the trial was fair. Umbrella had huge influence now and the governments were forced to follow the laws and give proper punishment to the officials. This would disrupt many workings of the government, but John didn't care. By the end of March, the Halo game was finally out. And since Halo was a classic, people loved it. The whole story arc of the Flood and the Covenants fascinated them. The gameplay was exquisite. After a week of the launch of Halo, John directly went to the Hall of Justice as he called everybody. The Hall of Justice looked huge and it had a huge table for everybody to sit. The Wolf School didn't come as they were busy with all the alchemy and teaching wonder sorcery. They weren't required for this anyway. John even called Clint for this meeting. Everybody sat in their seats. Steve now had totally integrated with the League and everybody came to know the new role of Rogers and were surprised to know now that he was an underground lord. If only my father was here to see you, Captain. Tony mocked. The League will fight for justice and control the dark side of the world. Steve said. Just don't get eroded by the dark side yourself. Wayne said. Steve nodded at it. So why are we here, John? Clint asked. Our new headquarters will arrive today. John said. The one in space. Is it from the Halo game? Natasha asked. Yes. The ring would be our new headquarter and maybe even our home as it is big enough and has its own weather cycle. And you have played the game, I presume. The 343 guilty spark will be responsible for maintaining order. John said. The world governments won't like having such a huge satellite in our orbit. Wayne said. Yes, Halo would be like Mars, so we can help some of them relocate there. I am sure the wealthy people would prefer to live on Halo more than on Earth. This alone would give us leverage. The AI would be like Gaia, a friend of ours. John said. They would try to snatch land from us. Oliver said. That will happen only if Guilty Spark will allow them to do so. And that would never happen without our permission. Understandable. Now guide the ring here. Victor, open the boom tube after the ring is seen from here. Tony said. Victor nodded to it. John closed his eyes and extracted the halo ring in the orbit right above them. The ring was much further away from the Earth's atmosphere so that original satellites wouldn't get hit by the ring. John had to spend 600 million fan values for this. Though he felt the pinch, he knew he would be able to gain more fan values by this ring as people would get to see the ring. John placed the halo ring on the orbit of Earth. Out of nowhere a huge ring-like satellite appeared in the skies. Even though they were thousands of miles away, they still felt the ring was massive. Everybody was able to see the ring clearly. The ring was visible to all of America and Western Europe. The moment the general public panicked as they thought there would be an alien attack. Many pointed out that the ring looked like the one in Halo. And since John has a history with many heroes which turns out to be real later, people believed that the ring was from the Halo game. They directly asked the governments to give a proper explanation of what was going on. The customer care lines of Umbrella were hit by massive calls and emails asking about the ring and if it had flooded there. The normal people felt scared as they didn't understand what was going on. There was a general sense of panic all over the globe as the other part of Earth also came to know. The governments had no idea of what was going on, so they contacted S.H.I.E.L.D. and asked for an explanation. Fury, who already knew about the Halo ring, told the World Council, which he had always said and known, that it belonged to another universe and was transported here. Do you want us to tell this to people? A member said. Councilman, a new world is coming soon which will be visible to the public. S.H.I.E.L.D. has infiltrated many walks of life and has become the greatest spy organization that ever was, but we can't control all lies. Especially the lies of the new world. So I would advise all of you to tell the truth to the public. At least the truth that the ring belonged to another world. And that it isn't dangerous in any way. If people don't believe us, we can take them to the ring and show them around. Fury said. Will that be good? Won't it cause more panic? For now there are only good things arriving. The people will think the bad things will arrive too. Another member said. They have known of aliens from the New York War and even seen the Kryptonian ship. Do you think that the general public will panic more after knowing the truth? No, they will be happy to know that they have their own moon where people could settle down. I know there will be complications at the beginning, but trust me. It would be better if we face it now than catching the people off guard when the new world arrives. Fury replied. What is this new world that John has spoken about? Did he give any hints? Sadly, he refuses to answer it, but only says that it will arrive in a few months. Fury replied. Bring out the world's origin from him as fast as possible. We don't like to be in the dark for a long time. A member said. I will look into it. Fury replied and closed the connection off. In a matter of hours all the governments finally revealed the origin of the ring, about the theory of multiverse. and said that many of John's work was real and was based on other universes which were also real. This caused another huge uproar as they never thought John's work was real. They just believed it was a story and only the movies of John had real characters which they also believed to be just a false story. Now this new information was totally new for them. So the works of John are real. Then does that mean many heroes we see today come from other universes? Now that I think of it, the names of the cities in the movies were never based on our cities. Are they really from other universes? The animes of John and their world are so vivid. If they too are real, aren't we really weak in front of the other universes? Does humanity even have a chance if the villains arrive from other universes? We have the Avengers to save us. Don't we have so many people on the good side? They will protect us from anything bad. That's fine if it's a major event. The Avengers won't save normal people like us. What shall we do? What shall the commoners do? Yes, you are right. But the Avengers can only do so much. We can report on any incursions from another world and tell the Avengers. Maybe then they will help. Such discussions were dominating in online forums and social media. As all these things were going on, John and others had already gone through the boom tubes and emerged from the other side. What welcomed them was a beach which had waves from the sea water. They could see the whole land stretching like a circle. The gravity was almost like Earth and it looked majestic. There was a cool breeze hitting the faces of the members and everybody felt like they were on Earth. Only difference was the view. They all could see the blue Earth from their position. Even though everybody expected such scenes as all of them had played the game, playing on a television and watching in real life was different. Even John was in awe as he never expected the ring to be so beautiful with vivid weather properties. He could see forests, deserts and even snowy peaks from his position on the other sides of the ring. Everybody took a minute to digest such a huge achievement of technology in silence. They could never have imagined that such achievement could ever be possible and they would be able to witness them. As they were thinking, a small cube-shaped flying machine came towards them levitating in the air. It had small blue-colored eye. It was the 343 Guilty Spark, the monitor of this ring. "Hello friends, how may I be of service?" it said. "Are you sure you can control this AI?" Rhodes asked as they had seen what a rogue AI could do. "Don't worry, after becoming Dr. Fate I have become more powerful and controlling such beings is easy." John lied but it was kind of the half-truth as he really could control them but it was because of the system. "That's good," Tony murmured as Ultron had given them a huge headache. "Hello, 343. Is the Halo ring working properly?" John replied to the monitor. "Yes. It's perfectly fine. The whole weather and other functions are working on 100%. The people can easily relocate here but they will have to build their own home and buildings the Guilty Spark. There are buildings built from before." "Yes?" John asked. "Yes. Please follow me if you want to check it out," 343 said. They all followed 343 and went to the structures that were built underground. It looked exactly like it did in the game. They all spent hours exploring the structures and even the landscapes. Victor, Tony and others flew away to check the whole ring while John chose the place where they first landed to play the Tower of Fate. John directly summoned the Tower of Fate and placed it near the beach. The others who were nearby were surprised to see such a huge medieval-looking tower appear after the wave of John. The tower looked ancient and even like a huge guard tower. "Want to go inside and see my library?" John asked. Sure. Magic, right? Would love to see. Clint said. They all entered through the huge gate placed in front of the tower. There was a huge hall with stairs on all the sides leading high up the tower, with books being placed on the walls. The collections of books on the walls surprised everybody, as there were so many books that they couldn't even see till the end. Everybody got interested and all started going through the books as they wanted to see if they could do any kind of magic. Of course, doing magic requires talent, and John didn't know any of them have such talent. John in the meantime checked his fan values and it was rising rapidly. A fan value doesn't actually depend on the likes and dislikes of a character or a thing being extracted, but on a person's beliefs and likes of John's movies, animes, cartoons and games. Thus, even though many people felt fear after seeing The Ring, John's fan value rose as people got interested in the game and had started playing it to know more about The Ring. John was happy to see the rise. He just lost 600 million, and from the rise it looked like he would get 600 million fan values back soon. The ring was massive and almost had the same diameter as the Earth, and thus many people could see it clearly. The people still were either in awe or fear of the ring, as they felt the flood might be there. After almost 12 hours of the ring's appearance, Umbrella finally came out and said that there was no covenant or flood in the ring and it was perfectly safe, as the Avengers had already gone and checked it. Umbrella also said that it would carry out rigorous tests on all the corners of the ring to check for any infection. The people were relieved when they came to know this and were happy that, like always, the Avengers went forward to check the danger instead of cowering away. That's it, guys. Hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe the channel, and also make sure you tell me your recommendation in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching.